Nope. All right. So I'd like you guys to start reading the cover story, Wallace Complies. Who would like to read that, actually? Let's just read together here. Madden, what's taking you so long? Oh, my. Go ahead, Sarah.
With the National Guard on campus, Governor George Wallace reluctantly complied with a request by General Henry Graham to step aside and let African American students register at the University of Alabama. Defying a federal court order, Wallace had stood in a doorway at the university blocking two African Americans. I denounce and forbid this illegal and unwarranted action by the central government. Wallace stated as he refused to move. When President Kennedy responded by federalizing the Alabama National Guard, the governor backed out.
All right. Good job. Good job. So 1963, this is really in the height of the civil rights movement. Okay. And that carries on throughout the 1960s. We all know the Vietnam War ramping up, and there's a lot of issues internally in the United States. But one of the biggest ones, civil rights. And with Wallace, he was a governor of Alabama, and he actually was trying to prevent African American students from partaking in the school, okay, and having an opportunity to an education. So, what was the argument here? What was the issue? Well, we're going to talk about some delegated powers and reserved powers to the states and how they maybe have it's a way, well, again, part of federalism, where we're trying to make sure that one power doesn't become too strong. The states don't hold too much power over the national government and vice versa. So with that being said, there is an argument between control. So with education, is that a state power or a national power? We kind of talked about that at the beginning of the year through chapter 1. What is it? What is education? State or national power? Something that the state controls or the national government? Tanner?
National.
Nope, state. Yeah, there you go. It's 50-50 shot. But anyway, yeah, so the state actually has the power to do what they need for education. So Wallace, he was a governor of Alabama, again, a state power. He's like, well, it's education. We think that our education policy is appropriate, and obviously he was for segregation in the South. And JFK pushing for civil rights and trying to stop some of the issues with segregation in the South in the 1960s. He was trying to order Wallace to open the doors up for African Americans partake in Alabama. And Wallace was totally against it. And Wallace brought up constantly that this was an issue between state and national powers, state rights. And in some cases, right, he was trying to push that for his agenda, for his idea. We all know that this is wrong, right? That people of different races should have the opportunity to an education. But Wallace continually backed that states' right position. It's like we can't allow the national government to become too strong. And this is one of those sticky situations, one of those examples where the state and national government conflict with one another. Okay. And with that being said, JFK finally ordered the National Guard and even federalized the National Guard of Alabama to make sure that Wallace steps out of the way and gives opportunity for African Americans a right for an education at Alabama. And that's exactly what happened. And I know I referenced Forrest Gump at the start of the class, but that example is actually in Forrest Gump, where he's in the background and he's wondering what's going on. We all know with Forrest, he's kind of he's I don't know how to describe it, oblivious of the situation, right? He has no clue what's going on. He has no clue the severity of the issue, and he's just standing in the background and he's just kind of walking through life and giving his story, right? And as this is brought up, Wallace is in the background trying to really literally standing in front of the entrance doors of Alabama. And a political official of JFK from the national government is like, hey, you got to remove yourself. And we're going to nationalize the National Guard here. We're going to actually take you out pull you out of this situation if you don't move. And again, it shows the state versus national government at that level. And I thought it was interesting because Forrest is just like, oh, hey, you dropped your book as the African American students are walking into school, and he helps them out and gets caught on national TV. And everybody's like, oh, well, there's Forrest again. Go figure. It's kind of funny. But with that being said, what can we relate today? What are some disputes with the national government and state governments today? There's a lot of them you can talk about. Tanner?
Vaccine mandates.
Yeah, vaccine mandates. Good job. Good job. So in particular, we all know Florida, Texas. Okay, they're always, those two countries, or sorry, countries, those two states are kicking back against the national government on these mandates. Okay, on the vaccine mandates, and that's a good example. It's a really good example. We know some states that are for it. Obviously, California, mostly focused blue, and New York. That's a good example too. So that being said, this is causing a lot of issues at the state and national level. Okay, as Florida, as Texas are kicking back against these national mandates, saying it's unconstitutional, goes against people's rights and freedoms. And we all know at the national level, they think it's a priority, the zero COVID policy. So again, some disputes between the state and national government. What else? What else can we talk about? Maybe for current events, who is it? Jason Tanner? Tanner, right?
No,
Chase?
did the-
Oh, that's right. I didn't assign anybody. Who's
Yeah,
next?
I was supposed to go to this.
Oh, do you have your current event done? Okay, okay. At the end of class, how about it?
All right.
All right.
I
So,
actually did my own vaccine.
oh, there you go. Cool, cool. Does anybody know a conflict anyway with the state and national government today? Another one that we can maybe talk about. Sarah? Yeah, abortion. Good job. So Texas pushing out the abortion laws, try to forbid abortions from occurring, and that's obviously conflicting with the national government. Good job. That's a great example. Another one? There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. What about immigration policies? Right, with the border. Okay, Texas is kind of taking it in their own hands to build this border wall and prevent this large flux of migration into our immigration, illegal immigration into the United States. So they're kind of taking their own hands. Like, well, if the national government's not going to own up to their own power, to their own responsibility, then the state's going to pick it up, right? Continue with building this wall and border requirements, even though that's a national power. Okay. So again, disputes between the state and national government. They're presented all the time. There's many examples that you can come up with. All right. So those are some current events that I don't even know who's up. Terrence, do you go yet? I think Terrence, you're up. Yeah. Okay. Well, who else? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. So Terrence, then we'll start back over. Okay. Good. Good. All right. Is there any questions on that with Wallace complies? So again, conflicts with the national and state government. So I'd just like you guys to read page 95, the division of powers, national powers, which we're going to talk about today. So you're going to read about expressed, which are enumerated, implied, and inherent powers. So 95 into 96. Shouldn't take you too long to complete. Got that, Jeffrey? All right, cool. That was the auction.
Pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw you there.
yeah. We got some tacos.
I got a full pizza, 13 donuts, 2 pretzels, and I got fries, 3 grapes, and a smoothie.
Hopefully you ran all that off. Back away now.
There's $7.60. They're like $3 again. I probably.
I believe it. I don't know how you ate all that. Are you two reading?
I'm trying to explain her age. Because he was going over something I wasn't there for.
Oh.
So I was in Mrs. Bookstore all by myself. So he didn't
Oh, well,
learn-
I walked by it there.
he didn't learn to speak so that he could class, and it was like he only speaks
All right, you guys can come back. Delegated Powers. I'll kick these out. You two classes. Just kidding. Are you kidding? I was just about to go over this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can go if you want. If you need to. It's an emergency. All right, so should be done reading. Shouldn't take you that long to complete. We will talk about delegated powers today, so make sure you remember what you just read about national powers and some of the branches of them. So expressed, inherent, implied. So bell ringer for today, describe what federalism is. Federalism. What's that? Yeah, we jumped right into that Stanford prison experiment. Can you wait till Chase comes back? All right, so what is federalism? What does that mean? What is federalism? So we talked about some of the principles of the Constitution, and federalism was one of them. What does it mean? Taylor, what does it mean? You had your hand up. Okay, all right, good. So this is maybe a division of certain powers being held by the states and powers being held by the national government to try to maintain a balance, to make sure that one doesn't become stronger than the other. Okay, in certain cases, we all know through enumerated powers and express powers that the national government might have, in a way, supremacy over the states. But for the most part, this is trying to divide the powers to make sure state or national level doesn't become too strong or powerful, more powerful than the other. Okay, so terms for today. Here we go. We got delegated powers, express powers, implied, inherent, and the elastic clause. So we'll talk briefly about the elastic clause today. Tomorrow I'll have a court case that describes where this was established, the necessary proper clause. So just another name for it. There we go. Those are terms for today. And this is a new chapter. Unit 4. vocab. Do you need more time? Okay, another minute. Go ahead. Okay, delegated powers, what are they? What are delegated powers? Madden, what do you have? What's delegated powers?
Delegated powers are given to the national government. Example is 21.
Yeah, good job. So delegated powers are granted to the national government. They're delegated to the national government. So they're here, delegated powers, just think they're national powers. All right, express powers. What are express powers? Jeffrey?
Such powers are powers given by the Constitution to the federal government.
Yeah, they're specifically stated. They're expressed in the Constitution, the powers given to the national government. And we'll talk about some examples of express powers today, but they are specifically stated. Okay, for the most part, they're found in the first 3 articles of the Constitution. And what are the first three articles? Jeffrey?
Freedom of speech, religion. Rights.
Articles. Establishing the three branches of government, right? Yeah, good job, good job. And what powers they do have. So they're specifically stated, they're expressed in the Constitution. And the first three articles, which we know, is the three branches. There we go. All right, implied powers. Sarah?
Implied powers are political powers explicitly stated.
Yeah, good job. So they're not stated in the Constitution, but they're implied that the national government has these sort of powers. Good, good. So they might not be stated, but they're implied that the national government has them. Right, Chase? Yeah. What about inherent powers? What are inherent powers? Chase, what do you have for inherent powers?
Powers of the President of the United States and Congress.
Mm,
Is that right?
we'll describe a little bit more.
They're not specifically in the Constitution.
Okay, yep. So kind of like implied powers, but they're just inherent to the national government. So what would be a good example of inherent powers, you think? Kind of talked about this already at the start of class, which with the clash between Texas and the national government right now. Tanner?
Making laws.
Well, that's kind of established. That's expressed. That's enumerated, right? The national government has that power. Sarah? Immigration. Good job. Control immigration. Good job. So again, these are powers given to the national government. All right, so we're going to dive into it now and talk about certain examples of these delegated powers. So federalism, we already know, divides the powers of the United States government and the state governments. So making sure the national government doesn't become too powerful over the states and vice versa, right? But this is a balance of power between state and national level. We already talked about the principles of the Constitution. We know federalism is one of those principles. One of the six. You guys good with that? We already know what federalism is. We talked about that quite a bit already, and how this is just making sure that the national government doesn't become too strong and the states have some power that the national government that they do not. So again, we already talked about this already. We will also talk about shared powers between the national government and the state governments. You guys good? Okay. Oh, the clicker, I don't have it plugged in. Delegated powers, we already know are national powers, okay? So that is given directly to the national government. And there's three ways that can happen, which through the vocab, we already know, and obviously are explained. So delegated powers granted to the national government, they're delegated to the national government. And there's three branches of that. So we have expressed, which are enumerated, right? Put up here, delegated, national, right? We'll talk about it. First, we're going to say express. So then they're enumerated. We have the implied. And here. Okay, so delegated national powers, easy thing to remember. Delegated powers, like I said, are broken down, expressed, implied, and inherent powers, which I already have up on the board. So I'm just going to keep moving through this so you have time to work on your assignment. So expressed, like I mentioned, are specifically stated in the Constitution. These are powers that are granted to the national government. Like I said, they're spelled out right in the first three articles, which explains really the three branches of government: the legislative, the executive, and judicial. So here are some examples of express powers. They collect taxes, coin money, regulate foreign and interstate commerce, raise, maintain armed forces, declare war, grant patents and copyrights, fix standards for weights and measures. And a lot of those powers, what were they? Some of the weaknesses to what? Jeffrey? Oh, look at that. Look at that. So that's pretty self-explanatory, right? I want to make sure that the national government has these sort of powers because we already went through and went down that road with the Articles of Confederation and how that was, obviously some weaknesses of that form of government. We need to solve them. So let's grant these powers to the national government and make a stronger central government, make a stronger national government. We can't allow the states to become too strong. Well, stronger than the national government. So those are some good examples. Again, coin money, collect taxes, raise an army, okay, declare war. Okay, obviously those are important powers that are expressed in the Constitution. And we all know those were some of the weaknesses to the Articles of Confederation. All right, implied powers. These are powers not expressly stated in the Constitution. So regulation of labor, building of highways and dams. Okay, determination of federal crimes, prohibit racial discrimination. So with some of these implied powers, okay, we all know, and I gave that example with Wallace and JFK, the 1960s through the Civil Rights Movement. Even though they're not specifically stated in the Constitution, these are powers that the national government had to make sure that everybody's treated equal. Building of highways and dams. So this is a way of infrastructure in the United States. Obviously, back in the day, they had no idea about the internet. They had no idea about highways, cars, okay, these new forms of technology. So it's important that the national government can stay up with times. And these are obviously not specifically stated in the Constitution, because they had no clue of the innovations we'd have. But with the United States growing constantly and changing and adapting to the new world modernization, it's important with highways, bridges, dams, powering different types of mechanisms, you name it. And right now, we know the push for climate, okay, and renewable energy. That's definitely something that's going to be brought up even more here in the future. And it's getting brought up now. So necessary and proper clause, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. Important court case, McCulloch versus Maryland. And this was an issue with the national government and state governments. Does anybody know a little bit about that court case before we talk about it tomorrow? No, again, this is this challenge, this debate between the state and national government. And this was really Alexander Hamilton seeing the importance of creating a national bank to try to obviously sustain the economy, try to help with the finances of the new government after the Constitution. And as he's placing this first national bank in Maryland, Maryland's like, oh, wait a minute, we can tax this national entity. Nope, you can't do that. We can't do that. So it makes it implied and necessary and proper that the national government has this entity to make sure that they can help with the finances and that the states can't try to interrupt with the national finances. Okay, so that's kind of where that came from, that specific court case. We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Inherent powers. So inherent powers, again, not often stated in the Constitution, but kind of implied. These are powers that are granted to the national government, mostly through the executive power, okay, given to the president. So with regulating immigration, we all know that's the executive power. Okay, with granting diplomatic recognition, so talking and discussing with other countries around the world, setting up peace, okay, protecting the nation. This is all involved with really the president, the commander in chief. So again, this is a lot of the issues like I was mentioning earlier in class with Texas and the United States with the vaccine mandate, Tanner brought up, with immigration. That's a great example as well. These challenges with the national government, specifically the executive branch and the states. Acquiring territories. We'll talk about this closer towards the end of this chapter and how territories become states and maybe how the United States can acquire some of these territories. Sometimes not too ethical, not too moral, but when it comes to advancing at the world stage, maybe we had to go through some of those stages. All right, we'll talk about powers denied to the national government more tomorrow and how these are obviously reserved to the states. So if they're denied to the national government, obviously someone has to pick it up, the states. All right, is there any questions on executive powers? Okay, any questions on the delegated powers here? So with implied, expressed, and inherent, make sure you guys know the branches here and some examples of each. It's gonna be important, maybe for a quiz, maybe for a test. All right, you good? Okay. So the assignment for tonight shouldn't take you too long. Since we're talking about Governor Wallace and JFK, I think it's important that we see the clash between these two, well, leaders. One was the governor, and one was the president of the United States. So I'd like you guys to read these two primary resources and answer the questions below. Let me publish that right now. So have this done, ready to go for tomorrow. We'll discuss it, we'll go over it. So this is just a brief explanation of what was going on, which I already described, I talked about. Here's JFK's quote, Governor Wallace's quote, and here's some discussion questions I'd like you to look over and have obviously an answer for. You guys know what we're doing? Awesome. I'm going to play the news now. You guys can work on that after the news. And that's it for today.